Hey guys, this is Those Guys with your host Matt Marrero along with your other host.
Pete Molsky. Hey, how's it going?
It's Pete Molsky. If some of you don't remember Pete Molsky, you're correct to because he's never done a podcast with us. But if you see our Those Guys Play content, then you gotta remember Pete. I mean, you were on season 1, Pete.
Yes, doing
Years.
Kamen Rider and JoJo.
Yes, years back. You're on season 1. Then we snagged you back for last year's Halloween in July. Sadly, we couldn't get you for this one in terms of Let's Plays, but we snagged you back for last one. And what did we get you for the last Halloween in July, Pete? What did we get you to do?
Castlevania 1.
Castlevania 1. So everything comes full circle. We'll retcon the fact that R-Type happened in season 3. We'll retcon and we'll say the last thing that you and I did was Castlevania. So I thought that this would be the podcast to bring you on, but you're never really available. So I thought I'm going to ask, but it probably isn't going to work. And, I don't know much about the game, so I'd never see it otherwise. But, I mean, everyone's talking about it. Maybe I can get Pete on because, Pete, you've been playing the game since you were a kid, since they first came out.
Yep.
So I thought, well, let me ask. And you gave me an emphatic yes. And I said, well, that's new.
Yes, I have strong opinions that need to be heard.
What's interesting is the reason why I think you want your voice to be heard so much, and also having me talk over you. The reason why you want your voice to be heard so much is because you both you and I have heard a lot of positive things about this show. There's been a few negative here and there, but a lot of positive things about the show, and apparently it's already been greenlit for a season 2.
It has been, yes.
So
I don't know why, but it has been.
yeah, so you have a lot of strong opinions about this show. So I just want to. I know you have some notes, and I definitely want to get through those as well. But because it's so, first thing I want to say before we even begin is it's a movie. Why would they not just have it up as a movie? I don't get it.
I don't know, because I noticed they did this really pretty intro where they credit the voice cast and the production cast, but not the animators. And they use it once in the first episode, and then for 2, 3, and 4, it's just like, hey, it's the logo, hey, it was directed by this guy, hey, it was written by Warren Ellis, and then into the show. Why fucking bother?
And then they do the end credits, and I'm like, wait, but guys, why would you not just? It might seem like overkill that you're, introducing them twice, but you made an intro for it. Why would you not just repeat that to make it seem as if you're watching another episode? Because I heard that it was written as a movie, and they apparently, I guess, made the whole thing as if it was a movie. And I guess I would imagine as late as, oh, Netflix wants to air this now, was when they were like, all right, so I guess we have to just chop it up. Even the way they chop it up is so awkward. It's as if they didn't write it to be a series.
Yeah, you could probably cut the ending of each episode off and just knit it into one long experience.
Yeah, it might.
You probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah, it might seem like we are nitpicking. It's just that, we don't want to get into the nitty-gritty immediately and just be like, this is shit. We don't want to do that, right? We just want to say, just outright, just as we're watching it, as it's being presented to us, it just feels as if every single time they say, next episode, it feels as if it's a commercial break.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
definitely almost like watching the old direct-to-video cartoon specials that would have the fade-outs for when the show inevitably gets televised.
Yes, that is exactly how it is. It reminds me, when I was a kid, I still do actually, which is funny. I don't know if they work. I have some Ninja Turtles VHS tapes that did that.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's the whole point. They're going to be on TV, but we're fading them out now. Or they just filmed them, put them on TV first, and then put them on tape. So yeah, it was weird that they did that. I don't understand why they did that, and I also don't understand why they chose the third game and not the first. I know that it's a prequel in game form, right? It's a prequel to the first game, right?
It is. Since you haven't played the series yet, there's some observations I need to make, right away.
Okay, please.
It feels like they wanted to make an adaptation of Symphony of the Night. By including Alucard, by using specifically a Symphony of the Night design, which is, I think, in the 1700s, not in the 1400s. So he's wearing this anachronistic fucking jacket. The first 15 minutes of the show is essentially a prequel to to Symphony. But they went with Castlevania 3 because, I don't know. I really don't get it.
And Symphony was on the PS1?
Yes.
Okay,
You
and
would know it because of the infamous, die monster, you don't belong in this world intro, which I
okay.
can quote from memory, but I will save you that trouble.
Okay. So in other words, so to you, you feel as if you get the vibe that because of Alucard's character design, it feels as if either they really like Symphony of the Night, or at the very least, to you, you're saying that they wanted. It seems like they wanted to make an adaptation of that, but then for some reason went for the third Castlevania game.
Yeah, it feels like they changed direction because they start off with Lisa and Dracula. Lisa is not introduced as a character until Symphony. They show the alchemy laboratory, which is the secondary you hit in the game. The casket they find Alucard in that or looks like a save point in Symphony, and he winds up wearing that outfit, which he doesn't wear in Castlevania 3. I don't even remember what the fuck it looks like. Hold on. I'm going to Google that, not like people can see.
Yeah, right. So you're googling how he looks like in Castlevania 3. So the reason why I'm a little thrown off, even as someone who doesn't really know much about the series, I'm not a fan of starting off with a prequel because I feel like you gain more from seeing it later. Now I understand some people saying, well, what were they going to do if they started off with one? But from the way you're making it sound, you know, the way you made it sound off camera, right, off podcast, they changed so much that they might as well have gone with the first one and taken a bunch of liberties.
Yeah, or they could have just done Symphony of the Night and ignored, because like Symphony of the Night's more recognizable anyway. It has a narrative structure. Castlevania 3 really doesn't.
So then wait, so when you say has a narrative structure, are you saying that, and just to be devil's advocate here, because again, I've never played, because I was going to ask you this question, that 3 doesn't have like text boxes and a story?
It does have text boxes. When you free Grant, who doesn't appear in this at all, Sypha and Alucard from Dracula. Well, you free Grant from Dracula's control. You free Sypha from being turned into stone, and Alucard tests you like he does in the series. There's like a text box, and then the game continues. But otherwise, it plays almost identically to Castlevania 1.
Okay, so then arguably, do you think that there is more room in some respects because people don't have quote unquote defined character traits?
See, I don't know, because I was actually playing Akamoto Densetsu, which is the Japanese version of Castlevania 3, and there is a lot of personality in those few text boxes, but for a character that doesn't exist in the TV show because his last name is stupid.
Okay, what do you...
Grant's last name is Dynasty.
Oh, okay.
As many silly jokes as you can make about doing Dynasty, they can include a 2-minute long conversation about goat fucking.
Yeah.
Change a dude's last name.
Okay, so then they changed his name from Dynasty to...
They're not appearing in this film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Grant just doesn't exist. There are no plans to include him. People have addressed this already.
Okay, so then
Primarily
that's...
because of his last name.
Huh. That's awkward.
Isn't it, though?
You don't want to know the reason why it's awkward is because look, I don't want to shit on the writers for this, but I have this feeling that they sat back with some of the jokes and especially with some of the gore and thought, "Ooh, this is going to be edgy." And they were kind of like chuckling to themselves, giggling like I used to. I think maybe if I was younger and hearing about the goat fucking story, well, I'm not saying it wasn't comical in some respects. It just felt very out of place and something that, you know, again, even though I only know very little about Castlevania, just doesn't seem like it fits for me.
Mm-hmm. I didn't. I'll let you continue because I do have an observation to make regarding not knowing a lot about Castlevania.
Yeah, because I feel as if I don't know much about Castlevania, I don't think this series helped. Which you could argue, well, it's not for you. But if it's for the fans, then it seems like you changed enough that they're upset. So if they're upset and I mean, I obviously understand what they're going to do. Like, it's very clear what they're going to do and why they're doing it, to be fair. But I know that things get a lot more complicated with the family histories. So I think it's just weird to start us off with a prequel. I think starting us off in the first one and trying to learn what's going on and then getting to the prequel if they had ever gotten to number 3. I think that's a better route than going like, okay, something like Dragon Ball was released first and then Z was. But if Z was released first, I'd feel weird if some adaptation or some movie or whatever went with Dragon Ball first. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I remember one of my ex's brothers, right? Her brother said to me, "Oh, you should play Devil May Cry 3 first." And I said, "Oh, well, why?" And he goes, "Well, it's a prequel." And I was like, That's not how any of that works." And he was saying, "No."
I would contend that you should play Devil May Cry 3 first because it's the best in the series, and yeah.
Right, so you say you like it the best, but in terms of it being, oh, because the story is a prequel, that's why you should look at it first. It's like, no, but a prequel gives you backstory that then adds upon someone you once knew. Like, it's kind of weird to say, watch episode 1 of Star Wars first. It's like, no. Even if it was good, I still would feel like that's awkward. Oh, don't worry. We've talked about it on the show before, myself and Tristan Walter. We've talked about that on Star Wars Wednesdays, and we ripped into it. But
good.
Yeah, good, right? As it should be. But yeah, so what were you going to say about being a non-Castlevania fan jumping into this?
I think it's safe for non-Castlevania fans to jump into this series because I don't think Adi Shankar or Warren Ellis know Castlevania either, and it shows. So if you're worried that like it's going to give you an idea of what the series is like, no, it's not at all. But, you know, yeah.
But here's the thing. So that can sound a bit scathing. But my question to you is this. Even though I'm not saying you're wrong, my question to you is this. Then why would they back this? Because it's not a major Hollywood picture, and I don't really see money in making this Castlevania animated series. So why would they... Because normally I think, oh, someone picks up something they don't know because there's a hell of a lot of money into it. There's going to be merchandising. There's going to be sequels. And we're going to get like 6 Transformers movies, man. But so you sit back and you... Well, I mean, that's just what I think of. I think of like, oh, like either like a Michael Bay or... I'm not going to say Zack Snyder doesn't always know the source material. I just think that he does it in a way that I disagree with, right? Something like Watchmen, right? I disagree with his stance, and I feel like this was a Watchmening, if that's the word, a Watchmening of Castlevania, from what I know it.
It's more like, I would say Michael Bay was a better analogy, only because if it were a Zack Snyder take on Castlevania in a Watchmen vein, it would be super, super uncomfortably faithful to the source material to the point of being a little boring.
Okay.
Like I think Zack Snyder's best work was Watchmen, because it was essentially just watching the comic book.
Oh, well, no, the reason why I say it, though, right? I'm not talking about, like, the shot-for-shot remakes were great in Watchmen. I was talking about this with another host of ours, Anthony St. Andrews, because I feel like he took, like, okay, to me, when I read the comic, it was more like, oh, we're supposed to not like these heroes a bit here and there, where it felt like Zack Snyder was like, no, you should love them. They're so cool. Look at how bloody this is. Look at this really cool fight, and how it felt like it was him reveling in the blood that was like, okay, so here I see, you know, I see Belmont hitting a priest and whipping out his eye, and I'm like, was that in the game? I have a feeling it wasn't, because it was on a Nintendo system. So I have a strange feeling that if they didn't like crosses at the time, they were not going to be huge fans of eyes getting whipped out.
You've watched, oh shit, you just made me put 2 and 2 together. Shit. You watched season 1 of JoJo, right? Part 2?
I watched season 1, part 2 for the podcast that I did with Tristan Walter. So,
in my notes for episode 2, I described it as Trevor cuts a dude's eye out with his whip while trying his best to be Joseph Joestar in an alley shakedown, but he's no fucking Joseph Joestar. That essentially is a fucking poorly done remake of Joseph saving Smokey. And I like, the more I look at Trevor's design, it looks like he's kind of a discount JoJo.
So, yeah, so so the question then becomes, do they like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Because I do wonder, like, why would that, because I know, like, you don't know personally, but why would they take this on if they didn't like it? Because I don't really see money in Castlevania, or at least aren't familiar with it.
Well, he also likes the Punisher and likes Power Rangers and has done unnecessarily like dark and edgy Power Ranger shit. So
Oh,
it
so
could be that he likes something and just doesn't know how to actually do it without putting his dick too far into it.
okay, so it's not like okay, so you're not like trying to diss his nerd credentials or anything like that. You're just saying that it doesn't like the adaptation, even if he had been a fan, which you're not saying that directly, but I'm saying now, even if he had been a fan, you're saying his clearly it didn't translate well.
Yeah, like you haven't played Lord of the Shadow or Lord of the Shadow 2. Those are ostensibly Castlevania games because they have the word Castlevania in the title.
Okay.
But they are done through the lens of Hideo Kojima directing them, and they do not feel like Castlevania games narratively. Because there are a bunch of Castlevania games with storylines and cutscenes and dialogue, and they're all distinctly like 80s anime-ish almost.
Okay.
And then you have this overwrought, melodramatic, edgy, dark bullshit, which sounds like I'm describing Netflix's Castlevania, but that's pretty much the arc of the two Lords of Shadow games as well, because they're supposed to be an adaptation, but they're trying to serve their director more than they are trying to serve the final product.
All right, so then you would argue then, or at least it seems like we can agree upon the idea that it doesn't matter what games he's played, he could have played all of them, but clearly he's taking a style potentially from other games in the series, and it is pushing it onto the third one.
Well, he's the director. He's allowed to put his own personal style into it.
Of course.
I don't feel his personal that's how I don't think that he, like my friend observed that Warren Ellis was not a good person to write Castlevania because it's not his style. I don't think Adam Shankar was a good guy to direct it because Castlevania is not his style. He might think it is, but he's wrong.
Okay, now my question to you is, how do you feel about the animation? Because I actually like the animation, other than in some of the later fight scenes, but I actually really enjoyed the animation overall. It reminded me of 2008 anime, which I think to my eyes, because of what I've grown up with, 2008 anime will always look the best, despite the fact that we're in 2017 and I need to actually shut up, right? I don't know, like.
It was up and down for me. Like, there are certain close-ups that look really terrible, like when characters are talking and just the animation's weird on it. Sometimes it looks really good. The Cyclops fight was actually pretty nice.
Yes.
But every fight scene after that, just the frame rate is, like, too low, I guess. It looks choppy.
Yeah, you would think that they would flip it. That if it was meant to be a movie, you would think that the Cyclops fight would look terrible and the later fights would look beautiful.
My friend compared it to the Lady Death direct-to-DVD anime, quote, anime, and I could see that comparison. It looks very much like that weird late 2000s American anime sort of thing.
Oh, it is such American anime. And it's funny, too, because at some points I'm like, anime. Other points I'm like, you had a book that said how to anime. You know, like, those, you remember those 90s books, right? It's like how to draw anime. And it was all just like the same. Granted, this isn't the same style as those books, but in the books, it was all just the same style of like, you're not anime, but you're what people draw at the anime club that all draw the same like 18-year-old girl, quote unquote 18-year-old girl in the schoolgirl outfit. Like that was, you remember those books, right, Pete?
Yep.
Did you own any of those books, Pete?
No, I did own How to Draw Manga series, though, that were actually localizations of a Japanese series.
Oh, that is interesting.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah, that does sound actually pretty interesting. I want to look into that. So your complaint. Well, I don't want to say I hate the word complaint actually because I use the word complaint. It makes it sound like you're.
I acknowledge that I'm complaining.
Oh, okay.
I have been bitching about this for weeks.
Okay, fair enough. But the reason why I don't like to use the word complaint because I don't want to make it seem like earlier on we were nitpicking, but I feel like if you're saying, this isn't the director's style or you don't enjoy the director's style, you've played all the games, which I don't, it's funny. When we say that, I don't make it seem like my opinion doesn't matter because I can still say that I like this because guess what? I like this and I've told Pete that I like this show. However, I will say probably until the day that I die that this show may have been better if it wasn't called Castlevania.
I agree completely, because I wouldn't have gone in with preconceived notions.
Exactly. Now, you did tell me over the phone you may not have liked it, but you still wouldn't have gone in with, okay, this is Castlevania, this is what I'm expecting, because I played the games and they're, I mean, it is interesting. It's a little hard because if you only take three into account, then they don't have that many text boxes. But yes, you said the only few that they had, they went in a completely different direction with Belmont. So,
Okay, how about this? In Castlevania 3, do you know who sends Trevor Belmont, or in the Japanese version, Ralph Belmont, to go and fight Castlevania, or fight Dracula?
who?
The Pope.
Why would this show shit on priests but not show the Pope?
I don't know. I feel like they wanted to inject some like Game of Thrones bullshit with this whole House Belmont fuck.
Okay.
And it doesn't fucking, and like it is mentioned in like old Japanese manuals that the Belmonts were living outside of society because they were kind of scary people. But when shit went bad, they are the people the church would rely on to go and fuck with Dracula.
Right. But they did.
So,
Yeah. But the normal people would be pissed at them, though, arguably.
the normal people would be terrified of them to some extent.
Oh.
But not like, because essentially they're God's hitman when you think about it. I mean, the Pope is saying, yo, can you go kill this motherfucker? That's some heavy shit.
Yeah, I wonder why they didn't go with the Pope. And I can understand some people would say, oh, well, that's offensive. But you went really hard into priests, like negatively. Or just, just priests, honestly. So it's strange that you would go hard into that, but go, oh, let's not paint the Pope positively. Because to me, it sounds like it's positive that the Pope is like, hey, I like you. Kill that guy.
Yeah. There's also, like, another complaint I saw. I wouldn't know because it is not my particular branch nor flavor of personal expression, but they had said that the priests and everything was a very Catholic theming, and it's taking place in a country that would be Orthodox as opposed to Catholic. Like, it would be the Coptic Church, not the Roman Catholic Church. So that's another weird design-wise that I can't personally vouch for because I wouldn't know the difference.
Okay. So I understand that there might be some controversy there. So it's still weird. I think the one thing that I noticed, and I'm only telling everyone this because it's a stupid thing that I thought to myself, and I think the world needs to know about it. So I don't know if you're a fan of Hellsing, Pete, but recently we've been doing the OVAs on the podcast, myself and Tristan Walter, not for Halloween in July, just for Anna Saturday in general. And we were doing them. And, obviously, as I'm sure you might know, at least from looking it up a little bit, the priests, or at the very least, the Catholic Church they aren't necessarily the main villains, but they aren't looked at favorably, right? Mm-hmm. So what I want to mention is it's kind of funny because of the fact that, they're not looked on favorably. And that was my thought here. I was like, oh, it's just like Hellsing. And that was the only reason why I thought that. And I stopped myself and I was like, maybe also the vampires, you idiot. And I was like, right, me. The vampires would also make it like Hellsing. Who would have...
How about this? Bonus fun fact. The guy that voices Father Anderson in the Japanese version of Hellsing has been Dracula's voice actor in Japan since Dracula X.
That is hilarious. That's a funny...
It's Wakamoto. It's Cell's voice actor.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's actually really funny. Okay.
Well, there are two things that I did like about it. The first 15 minutes or so of the first episode with Dracula and Lisa, aside from one line, I thought was actually really well done. I think that Graham McTavish is a great Dracula for, like, not being Norio Wakamoto. I do think that maybe I can teach you to like people again, or at least tolerate them, or stop putting them on sticks was a cute line, but it came out of nowhere and too rapidly into their budding relationship.
I think...
Stop for it. I'm going to hold off for a second so that way you can interject.
Well, no, yeah, because I do want to add, you mentioned the whole, like, oh, that line came out of nowhere. And I want to say that despite some of the stuff being funny, in my opinion, some of the lines, it did feel like they came out of nowhere, and that was a little awkward, where it felt like someone was saying, like, I am going to destroy you. harder than I would destroy a vampire on a dark night, am I right? And I will make sure that this is all ended. And I was like, wait, what? Like, that just kind of came out of nowhere.
I noticed that, speaking of dialogue, by and large, the only lines I remember are the lines I hated. Most of the dialogue I don't remember. I don't think any of it was really particularly memorable aside from one line, and it does itself immediately afterwards.
So, one thing I want to say is, were you getting, even though I haven't even seen the 3D Berserk, were you getting Berserk vibes at the bar with the camera angles?
That bar thing almost made me bail out in the beginning of the second episode when I watched it for the first time. I was so fucking pissed. I was. The camera work in that scene was fucking, like, horrendous.
I think it works on a 2D scale, but not on 3D. Like, Berserk 3D.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as 3D Berserk, but I don't think anything is.
But, but why? So wait, so the camera work is what made you bail, or the fact that the fight existed in the bar itself?
Number of times Trevor gets kicked in the balls, 2. Number of times Trevor needed to get kicked in the balls, 0. Number of times the phrase, "could you please leave my testicles alone," was used in the Castlevania game. Fucking never. Direct from my notes.
So it's a line that I like, but again, the question is, it's a Castlevania game, which, look, I know that, you know, it being on a Nintendo system doesn't mean that we should sit there and put it on the same rating that we'd put Mario up with, right? But I think that this show doesn't understand that, or the creators don't get that, and it's not just their fault. It happens a lot in media, right? Just because it's an adult series doesn't mean you need to do something like that.
Like, it felt like it was trying to be edgy.
Thank you. And that's my problem with certain parts of the series. Not that it couldn't be funny, not that it isn't quote unquote adult, but it's the same reason why, look, you know, I haven't seen much of Game of Thrones, right? But if someone tells me, well, Game of Thrones is adult because of some of the storylines they have are very complex, have a lot of characters that you need to follow, and I just feel as if when they die, you know, you feel remorse and you really feel like you've been connected to these characters. If someone said that to me, I'm like, fine. But if someone says Game of Thrones is adult because boobies, I'm like, that's not adult. You know what I mean?
Boobies and, like, George R.R. Martin leans on rape as a storytelling device harder than I lean on the bar playing DDR.
Yeah, like that's not adult, right? I mean, granted,
I'm trying too hard.
Yes, exactly. I mean, granted, the latter is an adult theme, yes, but if it's used as a storyline plot device, especially a lot of times, it's just like you said, it might seem like it's trying to be edgy, or at the very least offensive. And in this case, you know, it doesn't feel like the jokes were like I said, it feels like the jokes were thought up at the last minute, and they're like, hey, voice actor. Which, by the way, the voice acting, the cast, I think they were good voice actors, but by the end of it, it was just them thinking like, well, that was really funny. Can you just say it right now? We'll try to fit it in somehow. And then they said it real quick, and then they just put it in the most awkward portion of the episode or of the sentence or whatever, the paragraph. And then you sit there and you're like, wait, that was weird. Like that, yeah, like I was not the biggest fan of that.
I actually didn't like a lot of the voicing. I liked Dracula. I hated Alucard. I thought Alucard would be voiced better by the guy that did the English voice in the PS1 game. That's a fucking statement and not a good one.
Okay.
Sypha was trying way too hard with her accent, and Trevor just wasn't interesting.
You know, with her accent, when you say trying too hard, I only disagree because I think coming from, like, I've seen a lot of anime dubs recently, so it just sounds like another person doing a voice, which I guess maybe I've just been, I guess, desensitized to people doing accents like that or trying really hard to do them. So I think I've just become,
I think it felt like she was trying so hard with her accent that she was rushing some lines.
Yes.
Like she spoke really fast out of nowhere because it was just like easier to get it out.
Yes.
Hot take for my fucking notes. She can magic out some fire and ice, but she can't magic out a believable accent. Like, I was not enjoying the end of it.
I'm sorry, but it was hard to hear you there for a second. She can magic out. What was it? She couldn't magic out? Like, what's your concern?
She can magic out fire and ice, but she can't magic out a believable accent.
Oh, Jesus. Wow. That hurt. Ooh. Ooh.
I was getting really fucking mean towards the end of it.
Well, and it's sad too because it's not like we're trying to say that people can't enjoy this series, but there's definitely like there's so much praise, and I feel like the praise is making it seem like no one can be critical depending on the person or like what they can be critical about. That like I've barely seen a bad review, which I'm not saying we should say that this is shit just because it's not what you remember as a kid, right? But it doesn't have to be good just because it's not Dragon Ball Evolution. Like
it has a lot of really obvious problems that I feel aren't being like addressed critically though.
And that's what's interesting, and I wonder why, because you would normally expect the internet to be critical of pretty much everything.
Yeah, like the internet's supposed to be like a fucking terrible place, but
and I'm happy that it doesn't always have to be in this case, but it is strange how, like, honestly, I do want to know, and this is not a knock on Netflix, I'm just super curious, I want to know, and it's not a knock because it's something that I don't like, because again, I've said that I like a lot about this, so I wonder how they knew on day one, like, well, we gotta make a season 2, like, what are their numbers like that, or how do they look at it, like, do they just see, oh, we have X amount of people on, on our service, oh, X amount of people ended up watching the whole thing. Clearly that means that people must love this and want more of it. Like, I really wonder how...
Is there a rating system as well internally?
I guess there is. Like, I guess they look at 5-star ratings.
You can, like 1 to 5 star something, and people probably just 5-starred on instinct.
I think that may be what happened because they wanted more. Because, like, okay, so I have a question for you. Does this, at least its end, like the last few minutes, does it make you want more?
Me, no. But, I actually had a question for you.
Please shoot.
So, question number 1. How can this legend of the sleeping soldier exist for, quote, a long time when Trevor himself calls out the fact that Alucard's been down there maybe a year?
Yeah, I was confused at that as well. Like, I was confused. So that's why I said, as someone who... Because you say, someone who isn't a fan of this, like the series as video games, they'll just be able to jump into it. But me jumping into it, and this isn't something just with this animated show. It happens with a lot of different shows that say, oh, the legend of this, or, this has been happening for years or whatever. The timelines don't usually match up well. So I'm sitting here like, wait, but that's the kid... And then that's the mom who died, and then that's the dad who's, Dracula. So, like, you're sitting around, you're like, wait, but why, like, when did all this happen? And why does it seem like the priests are still alive and well, like it just happened the other day?
You don't ever see, like, the timelines not match up that quickly. Like, it's 2 episodes, and then you realize, no, they fucked up.
Yeah,
like,
so...
They wanted that narrative device to drive them underground, but, like, the show itself points out that it's bullshit.
So how long is it supposed to be? Like, how long are the years? Like, how long is it?
Little under a year, according to Alucard.
But in the games?
No, in the games that doesn't exist.
Oh.
In the games, you've been sent to Dracula's castle to go kill him, and then you run into Alucard, he fights you a little bit, and goes, "No, you'll do. I'll help you," and then he helps you.
Oh, so there's no discussion of how long he's been, like, the mom's been dead or anything like that. It's just, hey, she died, and Dad's pissed.
The thing with Dracula's castle is it reappears once every 100 years, so that way he can try to fuck everyone's shit up, because he's Dracula, and that's what he does.
Right,
so,
thank you for...
A Belmont must go and fuck with him.
Thank you for reminding me of that, because that's the only thing I know from seeing Did You Know Gaming on Castlevania, right? No, like, that's as far as I know about Castlevania. I saw Did You Know Gaming, and of course, you and I played it for Halloween in July last year. That's it, right? So I don't know much about it. So all I know is that, they're every 100 years. Thank you for reminding me. And so...
There are exceptions. For Dracula X to Castlevania to Symphony of the Night, there's... I think it's like only 1 year because things happen story-wise, causing it to come back sooner than expected. And then Alucard goes and fucks it up because Alucard's great.
Do you think they were trying to go for sooner than expected because things got fucked up?
No, I think they just abandoned the whole reappearing castle thing completely.
Okay. And so now here's a question for you. Do you think that this has the potential to basically be like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in terms of they're going to go throughout the generations? Because I don't know much about the game, but where else can they, like, why is this considered a season one and season two is coming up when it feels like this didn't really introduce much? And it was a prequel to a prequel's prequel.
It feels like it's a pilot almost. Like, this shouldn't be season one. This is just the pilot movie to see if the series will stick.
And I think it would be nice to call it the pilot movie, but calling it season one, does that also piss you off? Is that also what just, like, everything is slowly just grading away at you and just kind of eroding?
No, I don't mind calling it season one. I mind that, like, season two was going to continue in this direction.
Okay. But do you think that they will, like I was saying earlier, do you think that they're going to go into like another Belmont story eventually if this keeps on going on? Do you think they're going to keep on doing this with the entire series as far as they can go? Because they started off, like we said, with a weird game to start off with, but it's not the quote-unquote first one. So do you think they'll go into that timeline eventually?
See, I would like them to get a different production company and go through the Dracula X storyline, because that actually has a nice, neat little thing. Dracula's come back, he's fucked everything up, Richter is going to go save his fiancée and her sisters, I believe, from Dracula's castle. You can add characters for him to meet along the way, and it's just this cool adventure through the Transylvania countryside into the castle. And then he fights Dracula, and the end. And then shit happens later on, so you can get to Symphony of the Night.
Okay, so you are of the mind that, oh, I'd love more Castlevania, but it's this team that they put their stink on this. They put their, their I don't want to say stink, but I don't mean it in a negative sense necessarily, but they put their, their mark on this. So if they go with any more Castlevania, games, adaptations, that they should not stick with this same team, because they did their adaptation. That's fine. Now let's move on to a different game with a different team.
Yeah.
Okay. But are you...
I would appreciate, like, a full fucking... Get, like, a studio to do a full-budget 80s-looking series out of it, because if you've ever seen the intro to Dracula X, it is pure 1980s anime.
Oh,
my God.
I have not, sadly.
You should look it up on YouTube, just Dracula X intro, and stare at how fucking remarkably 80s it is.
Okay, so I'll look it up after the show. But yeah, I understand where you come from with that ire, where it's just, if this team has to adapt every single Castlevania game, that'll be interesting. I want to see, and I know this doesn't exactly tie into this show, arguably, but I would like to see an adaptation of the really weird newer game, the one that's more inspired with Spanish lore than it is with the original series. You know what I'm talking about? The one that no one likes?
The two Lords of Shadow games that I don't like.
Is that the newest ones? The newest?
I believe so.
Yeah, the ones that have
ones that were made with Kojima Productions.
Yeah, that have like Guillermo del Toro feels to some of the monsters.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. I would like an adaptation of that, not necessarily meshing with this, because, I mean, they can do anything they fucking want now, apparently. But now, here's the thing. So if they moved on to another series, though, like a company moved on to another series, would they then have to take this timeline into account? Would you have to take, like, this version of events would have to happen?
I think it would make sense. If they took, like, if they're going into Lords of Shadow, they can totally use this as a base.
Oh, no, but I don't even mean Lords of Shadows. I just mean in general.
Oh.
If going into, like, let's say someone says, oh, we're going to do the Dracula X, we're going to do the first game now. They now have to technically use this as a baseline, don't they? Or do you want them to just retcon this completely?
I would rather they retcon it completely, but I know that won't happen.
Right. Not necessarily saying that they should do another adaptation, because it's too close. If they do one,
I would just ignore the setup of this.
Okay. So, do you think that season 2 could make anything better by extrapolating on certain things, by maybe subduing some of the gratuitous violence or how very, arrogant Belmont is? Do you think they can?
I think they subdued their own gratuitous violence pretty quickly.
Which
like the eyeball bit is one of the last things that happens with gory. They were fine showing people getting their like intestines ripped out in the first episode, but the bishop getting eaten by a monster has to be off screen. Okay.
Yeah, I think that after, like, I don't want to seem like a jerk and say, like, oh, we don't have the money to do it. But I do think that, you know, if this was a show, it would be paced out much differently. You would have your little bits of gore every episode. But because this was meant to be a movie, you're not going to have that.
Another hot take. Are they called the speakers because all they do is deliver fucking exposition?
It seems like that's why, yeah. Like, and they exist in the games, right? They just don't talk.
They don't exist.
They don't exist.
Aside from the witch.
Oh. So then, huh. Why
Yeah.
why the fuck did we do that?
I don't know. I don't know. Actually, the Cyclops boss fight thing is the only thing that comes directly from Castlevania 3. Because you fight a Cyclops and you unlock her afterwards.
All right, so
that is the only thing in this entire fucking series that came directly from Castlevania 3.
So we lost you for a bit there, but we got the fact that you did mention that, yes, this is the only thing from Castlevania 3. This is the only fight. You get the witch after this fight, and that's the only thing so far that's directly from Castlevania 3.
Yes. It's specifically with a Cyclops.
Right.
Usually Castlevania boss monsters are like Frankenstein, Mummy, things like that.
Right. So I wonder why they would think that it would be, because look, I can understand someone saying, oh, well, they don't have a lot to work with because, you know, like I even was saying earlier, like, oh, they don't have text boxes or whatever, so they added in some flair here and there. But why would you, I guess, like, if it was a pilot, but it's such a long pilot to then have to be marketed towards being season 1 of just filler. Like, that's the thing, too, I think. If I was a fan of this series heavily, right, like a huge fan, I would wonder why would you include such filler when you could have just gotten to good shit?
I don't know. Again, if they would have done Symphony of the Night, which it feels like they wanted to, they would have had a totally different storyline to explore. They wouldn't have been compelled to include a Belmont, because the main character of 90% of Symphony is Alucard.
Do you think Konami... Capcom wanted them to have a...
No, Konami, you were right.
Oh, sorry. All right, I'm an idiot. That Konami wanted them to have a Belmont in their first adaptation?
I guess so. I mean, Trevor's, I think, only in one game. Simon is usually the one that, like, is the running protagonist, because he's in 1, he's in 2, he's in 4. So, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's so strange. I think this whole thing, I'm gonna look up if there's any interviews, like podcast wise or whatever, with the creators, because I would want to talk to them and say what happened. Not trying to say that it's a shit show, because I think that's rude, but just kind of being like, why did you make these decisions specifically? Because I know, like, the one where the creator was saying, oh, we want this to be more of a dark comedy. And I was like, well, that's awkward. I think...
Castlevania is not devoid of comedy.
Okay, so, yeah, it's not devoid of comedy. It's not like it's a serious drama. There are some funny moments.
My favorite in Symphony of the Night, you run into Maria, who's wandering through the castle looking for Richter. And she goes, have you seen Richter Belmont? And there's a thought bubble next to her with Richter's sprite in it. And then Alucard goes, Belmont, and he has a thought bubble showing the Castlevania 3 sprite of Trevor.
That's funny.
So that's a cute gag that only works in the game. But, like, there's an enemy called Soccer Boy. It's a skeleton chasing around its head.
Okay.
The enemy description for the Beelzebub boss, who is this giant corpse hooked up on, like, these disgusting fucking rotting hooks with flies all over the place. It explains that he's worrying about his thinning hair. Like, there's weird humor hidden there, you know, around the thing, but most of it is through enemy design and visual means.
Right, and there are things that can arguably be translated over, but you don't necessarily have to have, you know, a Belmont saying, like, please don't kick me in my testicles.
Yeah.
So from the games, he doesn't seem like he's a Oh, so wait. So in the games, is he still a character who says, "Hey, I don't like being a Belmont"?
No, he's just he doesn't have he has the least developed personality of the characters in Castlevania 3 because he doesn't really just have text boxes.
Oh,
You beat Grant. Grant thanks you for snapping him out of his the thing and offers to help you, and then you say yes, and you shake hands.
okay.
Like most of his dialogue prompts are hi and ie in Japanese or yes and no in English.
Right. So then would you say that the issue with giving him this character isn't that they gave him a character, it's that one that you aren't the biggest fan of?
Yeah, like it feels they wanted to give him this whole tragic fallen hero storyline because that's just easy points. But they wind up like making their decisions about it way too rapidly. Like you're expected to believe that within 24 hours he could barely handle himself in a bar fight against 3 drunk people, but he can fight off 5 or 10 armed priests less than 24 hours later. Because now he has something to fight for. But he was just drinking heavily like 2 days prior and couldn't handle himself. Why?
Okay.
Because they want that whole fallen hero storyline, but they also want him to be cool in fight scenes. It makes no narrative sense.
So do you think it makes no narrative sense because of how short it was, or just in general? Like short as in if it was in an actual series that was like had actual episodes and not just split up arbitrarily?
The time frame is too short.
Okay.
Because
So
you're going immediately bar fight, night falls, day rises, he ends up in Grezhit, he saves Sypha, night falls again, priests.
okay.
So we are less than a day out from the bar fight,
Apparently.
where he could barely handle himself.
Right. And if we're not, then you got to put some week later boxes or something. I'm surprised that they were not big fans of putting like 1 week later or 1 month later or 1 year later. Like they didn't really have a lot of those, times like get time skip or just, those directions that kind of just, you can call them signs if you wish. But yeah, it just didn't feel like there was any time going by. So it felt like everything happened in a very short amount of time. Maybe.
Yeah, I understood it like the beginning shit with Dracula happened, a year passed because Dracula points it out.
Right.
And then everything else is over the period of 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little weird. It's
Like the pacing is a nightmare.
yeah. I wonder. It's just oh man, like I wish. I hate that because again, I don't want to sit here and say that this is a critical failure because it seems like it's not. But I wish I knew Netflix numbers because I want to know if they're happy with this or if obviously they are for season 2. But I want to know if Konami is happy with this.
I don't think Konami cares. I think Konami got their money for the license and fucked off.
That's a good point.
They're fine with that.
Question: do you
Because
think
that's how they've been lately?
yes? Do you think that they paid a lot of money for the license, or do you think that because it's Castlevania, but at the same time, Castlevania has kind of fallen out of popularity?
The last big non-Hideo Kojima Castlevania release was on the DS.
The original DS.
Yes.
Yeah. So the popularity has fallen. There obviously are fans because here you are. I've enjoyed what I've seen, right? So Castlevania fans do exist, duh, right? It's not like they've moved on and they don't care about the franchise anymore. But I do wonder, I wonder how much that this could have been sold for. Because, like, I know that, at least when it comes to anime, Japanese companies say, oh no, but it did well domestically. It doesn't matter how it's doing overseas now. So I do wonder if this was sold for a hell of a lot of money.
I honestly don't think it was. It could not have been that much.
Okay.
Like, just because of the way Konami's only really been focused domestically on their gambling things, their sports clubs that they own, and their music game series.
You say
That's
gambling things. They make pachinko.
Yep, Pachi slot machines are a big deal in Japan.
To the point... okay, wait. Am I wrong in saying that... I don't know about Japanese fans, but American fans were furious because Konami said that they had a big announcement about... what was it? Was it about...
This was Castlevania and Silent Hill. just got new pachinko machines.
Yes. So they were saying that there was a big announcement regarding Silent Hill, and it was after the whole fallout with Kojima, all the PT stuff, right? And there was this huge announcement, everyone freaking out, and then it became a pachinko machine. And the audience, like, it was like deflating a balloon to the American crowd.
Went mild.
Yes, well, to an American crowd. I don't know about the Japanese crowd. Maybe you know, pachinko machines are huge. Maybe they were like, oh, cool, it's not freaking PT, but it's a pachinko machine. But I do wonder...
When I was in Japan, there were a lot of pachinko parlors in the area I was staying in, and walking past them was the loudest fucking thing I've ever walked past. Like, the doors would open automatically, and all you would hear is just steel balls rattling.
Okay, so...
It was amazing.
So yeah, because like people actually do care in Japan. It's not like we're sitting here like that's not a video game. They were actually like, potentially like, oh, good, another pachinko machine. Like they weren't empty, is what I'm saying.
A dedicated crowd, we'll say.
Okay, dedicated crowd. No, what I'm saying, like the places you walk by. You said you walk by so many, but they weren't empty.
No, not at all.
Okay. Because that's what I'm saying. Because like in America, right, you know, if we look at pachinko machines the same way that you would look at a pinball machine or other arcade machines, it's all going virtual and we're all staying at home. So I would argue that arcade, you know, as much as I love an arcade cabinet, the arcades
here are virtually dead.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they're not doing that well. Unless it's a barcade, but that's a different story for a different podcast. So, yeah, I just found it funny to think of, you know, Silent Hill news, and then America was deflated at the news of a Japanese-only, by the way, too, Japanese-only pachinko machine. Yeah, I can think of, and you mentioned Castlevania got a new one. So, yeah, they're really focusing on that pachinko.
It's a gambling thing, so it draws in money.
Fair point. So you don't think it was a lot of money, because I'm not saying it was like Super Mario Brothers kind of money, but I feel as if, at least at one point, Castlevania was huge. So that's why I think of it as, if it's doing well domestically, then they want to charge more for it, because they don't care how it's doing in America. They care about how it's doing on their, you know, in their home country. So yeah, and the reason why I was talking about how much it's worth is because I wondered why Netflix picked it up of all things. Like, is there like a Netflix executive that loves Castlevania, or that wants to get into like this niche?
I think what the case is that like Federator Studios got the rights for it. They've had them for a while. Castlevania as an animated project has been in the works for a long time, and they probably were just shopping it around. And Netflix are the people that bid. Okay.
Before I even get to that last part, I want to laugh at something. I remember looking up online how long it's been around. I think it was 07, 08.
Yeah.
When I said that animation like this started, I think they just started animating it then and they just shelved it. They had the whole thing done. I'm kidding.
I think this is something they've been like starting and restarting for a long time.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding about that. Yeah, no, you're right. One thing I wanted to note about the animation that I didn't enjoy, technically the dubbing. In the beginning, I think it was the mom in the first few minutes of the show. I believe she moved her mouth, and you thought there's going to be like a word coming out or like a sigh or something, and she just moved her mouth while having her head turned to the side before she went into Dracula's castle, and nothing was said. It's something so minor, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, why would... It's in the first few minutes.
No one got it.
Yeah, like no one got it somehow. But yeah, so you were saying how Netflix is the highest bidder. I wonder, and again, not to be... I don't mean to put down Castlevania, because again, I think that there was a point when it was huge, and I want it to be popular, and I'm happy that it's seemingly a somewhat of a small resurgence, both in Japan and in America with this animation. But my question is, like, do you think they were the only bidder?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Well, I say only because, like, I can't imagine... Like, even though I would have wanted something like this to be on Sci-Fi or Spike, right? You kind of wonder, like, why would they not? Like, some people say, oh, well, you know, adult animation on TV, maybe it's not doing so well. But still, this is a show that I could see on, on a channel, rather, like Sci-Fi or I mean, if Adult Swim wanted to do something a bit different,
I almost think maybe they shopped it around as a movie, and no one was interested in it as a movie, and then maybe Netflix might have seen it and gone, maybe not a movie, but what if you cut it up?
Oh, I think it was a Netflix decision to cut it up. And you know what? That's a good point.
Yeah.
So when you say shopping it around, do you think it was in the they finished animating it and then we're shopping it around?
I think so.
Okay, because the reason why I bring it up is because it doesn't feel like this has any. I think I said it earlier a little bit, but maybe differently. I don't think this has any. It doesn't feel like there was any oversight outside of the company that made it. Like, it doesn't feel like Netflix put their mark on it. It doesn't feel like another company would have put another channel would have put their mark on it. It feels like they made this as a movie, and then like you just said, Netflix was like maybe not, and then they cut it up accordingly because they said, well, we're getting paid, which I don't bemoan them for getting paid, right? Like, good for them to make this, and then it's like, well, what are you gonna do with it? Well, just chop it up and let's make it into a series instead of a movie. But I do think that was a bad decision. If it was by Netflix, it was a bad decision. If it was by them, it was a bad decision. This is a movie through and through, and there's no way to sit there and go, no, but it's a TV show. Like any other TV show I've seen on Netflix, despite the fact that some of them kind of run right into each other, it feels like they're supposed to be binged. But just because it's supposed to be binged doesn't mean that someone wrote a 10-hour movie and then just chopped it up into 10 episodes. And said, well, I hope this works. Like, no, every episode, in a way, has a beginning, middle, and end to it. Daredevil got a little weird at some points, I'll admit. But it still feels like there's a beginning, middle, and end to each episode. And, so here, it felt like there was no beginning, middle, and end. It was just the beginning, which is episode 1, and then everything else was just a continuation. Because it's a fucking movie.
Yep.
I don't get how episodes 2 and 3 had endings. They just had pauses.
It's really tempting to throw the whole thing into Premiere and just see if I can knock it together into one 2-hour experience. And if I could make it better, but
yeah, right. But it wouldn't be the way it currently is. We should mention, by the way, episode 4, we did have the townsfolk killing a priest brutally, so we shouldn't act like it. Yes. So they did come back to it, but when you mentioned
but it wasn't as bad as the gore in the first episode.
Good point. Which, yeah, you sit back and you go, well, why are they holding back? Like, it's so weird. It feels like they did the exact opposite of what I would imagine a movie is supposed to do. You're supposed to flip it and take, early on the fight, it's okay, but it's not that bad. And then at the end, you just pile everything on. You would pile the gore. You would pile the amount of fighting. You would pile, and yes, of course, you had Alucard versus Senor Belmont. But I'm sorry, Senor, I've been excommunicated Belmont. You had that going at the end there, but it didn't feel like it was big enough to warrant them going, see you next time. Like,
can I throw in some more nitpicks for episode 4, by the way?
Please. I want to wrap some things up soon, but let's nitpick away for right now.
Around the neighborhood of when that priest gets killed, from my notes, Trevor has fucking forever to develop battle plans with these villagers when the demon Hellfuck army is less than 20 feet away, because of course he does. Also, these flying demons are totally thwarted by ice walls they can't possibly fly over.
Yeah, what's going on with these demons? Because some of them speak.
They're fucking demons.
What? I'm sorry. What was that?
They're fucking winged demons that were flying everywhere, but you put these ice walls up next to them, like, oh no, that's a little chilly.
Yeah, I feel so weird about these demons because it felt like they wanted it, like, I don't know, like, it's kind of funny because Dracula, who apparently summoned the demons, so, like, are they an extension of Dracula or just demons from hell that he was like, come up, boys?
No, I think they're demons from hell. I know they're not demons from Castlevania because they don't look like them.
Well, no, the reason why I bring it up is because if they are in any way somehow an extension of Dracula or are based around how he feels, apparently his wife mellowed him the fuck out because these demons are pretty chill. And that's not an ice pun. That's just the fact that they are not as evil as I had thought they were going to be. Maybe that's just me.
I thought they all just looked like rejects from gargoyles.
Yes.
They're really boring in design. And there wasn't a single fucking animated skeleton. And goddamn it, those are the first things you run into in every Castlevania game. Those and zombies.
Yeah, I feel like they should have just made it like a Ray Harryhausen film. Just don't even animate them the same. Just have them come out as like stop motion. Like
claymation skeletons, I would have flipped my shit.
Right, yes.
My opinion of this series would have just improved so much.
It wouldn't have even blended in. You just had claymation skeletons around. You'd be like, I'm in. I'm good.
I would be down, totally.
Yeah, I don't really understand what they were trying to. Again, if as someone who hasn't watched the or hasn't played the games, or at least specifically this game, to me, this all seems somewhat. Well, this part anyway seems somewhat normal, right? Like, oh yeah, they're trying to. Yeah, whatever. There's demons and everything, but it's kind of funny when you sit there and you're like, no, they're just extending everything. This doesn't exist. This never existed. And you honestly would be a lot happier if they had just been a lot closer to the source material for maybe a 25-minute pilot.
Yeah.
So do you think they could have...
Just have fucking Trevor infiltrating the castle. Give him, 5 minutes with the Pope, and then just have him fighting fucking shit for 20 minutes. I'll be fine with that.
Right. So, yeah, you feel like it was unnecessary to add anything like this that was new. It's not like some of the new things are a problem, right? Because again, while you don't like what they did with Belmont, in terms of his character, they could have done it if they didn't then fuck over everything else, like the time frame and the time span and how he can't fight drunk guys even if he's drinking. He can't fight drunk guys, but apparently he's like, I've sobered up. I'm good against demons now.
Yeah, like the other thing, like. You've seen Mad Max Fury Road, right?
I'm going to say yes because I want the podcast to go smoothly without you getting angry at me. So yes, I have.
Oh, shit. Oh, no, if you haven't, it's about 2 hours long, 2.5-ish, and a good hour and a half of that is a car chase. There's hardly any dialogue in the middle of that movie. And it works narratively because they use visual storytelling to its best. You could probably do a adaptation of a Castlevania game with zero story by just creatively using the environment and using enemy interaction. Like, Death comes along and dicks with you in the beginning of Symphony of the Night, so Death can always come along and dick with the Belmont, but, like, just having him against the castle as an entity, as a living thing, would have been interesting. And you could save money on a voice actor. He doesn't need to talk.
Okay, so to you, you're saying that. I mean, so it's funny because I somewhat disagree. I think you should be able to give them dialogue, but I don't know if you should force things in there to the point where it feels like everything is exposition for something that you're not going to see yet.
Yeah, well, I'm saying not necessarily that like it needs to be a silent cartoon,
right?
But I'm saying that they're trying to create a setting that not only doesn't agree with the source material, but doesn't it adds so much shit that does require exposition. It requires all of these fucking people talking and nothing happening.
Yes.
They didn't need to do that. They could have just set up an environment and had things happen and you just experience and you show instead of tell.
Yeah, I'll say this. I have to say this over and over and over again, right? Don't know much about the series, but from what I've played from the first one with you, which I sucked at, by the way. If anyone wants to go see the video, those guys play, search that up on YouTube. I sucked. I did. You were so much better than me at that. But
you also don't have 20 years of playing up to your belt.
Basically, yes. But what I'm trying to say is, it felt as if, I don't know if I wanted to see a story where the main character of a Castlevania game fought more humans than the undead. I mean, I don't know if he fights a lot of priests in the game. So,
nope.
Okay.
Not priest one, not a single.
So yeah, so then do you also feel that way, or is it just me as someone who actually hasn't played? Do you also feel like, oh, he should be fighting a lot more of the undead than real people?
He should be fighting a lot more monsters. A lot more varied monsters.
Right, they don't have to be undead, to be fair. They can just be monsters. I only say it because looking at this, if I, if he changes his outfit a little bit, give him a hood. It just hit me. This might be Assassin's Creed.
Shit.
No, but you see what I mean, right? Like if you just
Yeah, I do.
if you change his sword into something, into the arm thing. I'm sorry, everyone who loves Assassin's Creed. I've only played a little bit of Brotherhood on the show and a little bit of the original on the show. I apologize. Yell at me in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube, but or go to our YouTube channel and yell at me in the comments there. But my point is that if you use the Assassin's Blade, or if or any other piece of the equipment, like if you just changed his outfit to a hoodie, I think I just got Assassin's Creed vibes, and it kind of feels a little awkward.
See that.
Yeah, I don't know how many of you actually been able to play, because
I played the first one pretty extensively. Part of the second one, my nephew accidentally deleted my save. I haven't touched an Assassin's Creed since.
Right.
I understand, like, I can see that he has that, like, overly ornate thing hidden underneath the cloak.
Yes.
He uses his sword way more often than he uses his whip.
So, which is something weird that you would think he'd use the whip more as a character in a Castlevania game.
Also, for some reason, it's a leather whip and not a chain whip. The vampire killer is a special thing anyway.
Right.
That
So
is the name of the whip.
Okay, right, yes, Vampire Killer is the name of the whip. And yeah, you were saying before, kind of cut off a little bit, yeah, you were saying that you play the first one a lot, you play the second one, and then your nephew accidentally deleted your save, so you haven't touched Assassin's Creed since the second one.
Correct.
Okay.
I've missed like 50 games, I think.
I'm pretty sure it's 50 games, technically 5 if you consider them without bugs. Games.
Fuck.
Sorry, man, but when people's faces start disappearing, it gets really creepy, man. Like, I couldn't sleep for like a week. I don't think it's right to release a game. I'm not saying you can't have bugs. Look, I'm sure if I released a game, it would have some bugs in it. I'm not saying it can't happen. It's just that when you're releasing these games and you're a big company, it's kind of awkward that you release a game where a person's skin can just disappear. It's frightening, man. But yeah, like...
Casual horror.
Yeah, no, casual horror in this game, and I'm sitting here, and I'm like, did the guy who created Castlevania, the animated series, make this game? Is this intentional? I don't know. Is this intentional gore? I'm confused. And mind you, I've seen some horrifying VHS gore, right? VHS horror gore back in the day, but like, it's just between that I'm expecting, and then just seeing a clip of Assassin's Creed and just seeing a dude's face disappear. And have him talk naturally, like he's like, "Oh, how you doing?"
With the floating eyeballs and teeth, and that's it.
Yes, well, that's one variant. There's variants of how much of a face can disappear. Anyway, so I mean, is there anything else you want to say about? Well, actually, I asked you what you liked about this series, and you told me. What's the thing that you disliked the most? I don't think we've discussed that.
I've got to pick just one.
Right, it's hard, right?
Because I do have like a number of problems, and like I think the biggest thing is the dialogue in general.
Okay.
Because it oscillates between completely and totally boring or mind-numbingly stupid. There was one line that I sat there and went, "This is a great fucking line. I'm happy with this line." And then immediately the same character undoes it with a stupid line.
Okay, so that's what you disliked the most. I might say that I disliked the demon going after the priest. It was just a really weird line for him saying, "Let me kiss you," because, like, I understand they're trying to go for, "Oh, hey, I like you, man. We're free because of you. Fucking thanks, asshole." But it was weird, just him, and also he didn't say it like, I don't know, like if you think of someone like Mark Hamill or Tim Curry doing a line, it's like, "Ooh, let me kiss you." Like, you're like, this.
If Tim Curry would have voiced that demon, that would have been amazing.
You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a certain charisma that some actors can give to a character that's ending something with "let me kiss you" before they eat your head off. It's like, oh, cool. But doing it here, it was just so weird. It was like, "Let me kiss you." And I'm like, what? I'm not even unnerved. I'm confused.
That's the same scene where my favorite line happened.
Oh.
And I didn't remember that line because it wasn't, like, very good for it.
Oh, what was your... Yeah.
My favorite line is when he's staring the bishop down and he goes, "Your God's love is not unconditional. He does not love us, and he does not love you." I thought that was fucking brilliant. Right there. That was like, yeah, that's a good fucking line.
It's so interesting because it's a good line, but it also, I don't know if that's considered edgy as well, because like you said, they didn't really deal with the priests much.
I'm admitting that it is an edgy line, but like in the context of that scene, it was a very good line.
Oh, it was.
The bishop freaks out and goes, "He does love me. My life's work is in his name." And then the demon goes, "Your life's work makes him puke." And I was like, I deflated. Just like, really?
Wait,
really?
but why? That's a legitimate line. That wasn't meant to be funny.
No, but it was all classy and like threatening, and then just the word puke in there. It's like, really?
Oh.
You could have been more demeaning here.
Oh, okay. So then that's something else I think we haven't really talked about much. We're actually gonna wrap this up soon, but just one little quick thing.
Yeah.
One little quick thing that matters. Some of the lines, like, it's okay. Testicles is a line I can see them, I guess, using at the time, and I'm not saying they all have to be like, dost thou weareth her mother's drapes? Like, not everyone has to be Thor, right? But the issue is that it does feel like at some points it's just like, yes, I am of the Belmont house. And it's like, are you? And it's just like, yes, of course. Blah, 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 blah. And you're kind of sitting there and you're like, that's not language that should be used at that time. You're going to take some liberties.
Crazy.
Yeah, like you're going to take some liberties, yes. But at the same time, it does seem weird if someone was like, I don't know. Like it felt like at any point one of the characters could be like, that's amazeballs. Awesome sauce. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt like these characters at any point could have said something that you're like, that shouldn't be said at this time period.
I could pee in a bucket and tell him it's beer.
That, I think another character could have said it. I don't know why the fuck she said it. Like that was weird. Like I know that she doesn't like the dude, but like he didn't.
Fetishism? I don't know.
What?
I said piss fetishism? I don't know.
Right? Like, no, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, so he, like, I don't know what the fuck he said off camera. Like, literally off camera. We didn't see it, but he was just like, yeah, no, if you guys don't leave, I will kill your family and you will watch. And then I'm like, you know what? That beer line makes a lot of sense. But without it, I didn't really see why she, like, I think they knew what they wanted to do, but they didn't know how to get them there. And they used, I don't say tropes necessarily, but they used, I mean, I guess you could argue that the word is tropes, but they used certain character, I'm going to say tropes that you go, okay, yes, I identify with that. I've seen it before. I'll see it again. Okay. But they didn't know how to get to that point. Cause I really don't understand why she was like, that fucking asshole. Yeah, he saved me, but who gives a fuck? And then also with Alucard, it's like, you know what? He did save me. And I'm like, I'm happy it took an undead vampire to make you realize. Like, why is she sounding heroic at the end? He saved me and that's why I care. No, it's because you'd be on the menu next.
It feels like they had a checklist for story beats they wanted to hit.
Yes.
And they're just kind of going down the list, like, okay, we've got this, we've got menacing threats, we've got the exposition. Oh, we better have them, have her save him now. Oh, yep, we did that.
And I don't think that checklists are the problem. I think that if you don't have much in between, then they are a lot more apparent as a checklist.
Yeah, like, with how fucked up the pacing is, it feels like it's going through the motions. With more room to breathe, it might not have felt as obvious, and thus it wouldn't stick out so badly.
Yeah, so I think 6 to 8 might have been a better, if this was actually a fucking series, 6 to 8 may have made it work. You still wouldn't have liked it for the reasons why you dislike it, and you would have gotten even more cringeworthy lines, but in terms of development, 6 to 8. I think. Yeah. You could have given it more time for...
That could have given it more room to breathe.
Yes.
It wouldn't have had to have the speakers do their namesake for, like, fucking the last 10 minutes of the second episode, I think? No, third episode? They just speak for fucking ever.
They really do. It was a little awkward. So sadly, we have to wrap things up here. If any of you guys liked this, please yell at Pete to come on the show more. Well, because Pete, you do Let's Plays as well, don't you? Or you do little clips.
Sometimes,
yes. Would you like to give out some of your info, or?
I stream on Mixer.com, /Rahanakaro. You'll probably see it in text somewhere because I'm too tired to spell that shit right now.
Right, and
That's what I primarily do.
Right, you said Rahan Akero, so RAHAN and then AKERO.
Yep, that's me. Mixer.com.
Nixer?
Mixer. It's it does like lag-free streaming. It used to be known as Beam. It's pretty neat.
Okay, because I remember seeing you on Twitch for a little bit, but you've moved over to Mixer.
Yeah. I do Twitch sometimes, but most of my shit's on Mixer.
Yeah, and you primarily do live streams. Is that what you said? Because I've seen some of your stuff, but I wanted to know, like, you don't do pre-recorded content.
Not really, no.
All right. Unlike Those Guys Play, something that Pete has been on before. That's what I'm saying. If you also wanted to be on there, yell at him. Tell him, hey, get on no matter what. Those Guys Play, you can search that up on YouTube by searching up Those Guys Play. You can find us there. And Pete and I specifically, as I mentioned earlier, way earlier, you and I we've done R-Type, we've done JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle, we've done the original Kamen Rider game on the Super Nintendo, we've done Castlevania for the NES, and I think that's all we've done.
Bring over Symphony and make you play it.
Yes, and I gotta bring over Symphony. I have to play it. So that's what we've done on the show. And we can do more in the future, hopefully. I'm going to try to wrangle him in for season 4, hopefully.
Yes.
Yes. But what matters for right now is that, again, if you want to, we currently are doing Halloween in July. That's why this is even coming out for TV Tuesdays, because I wanted to bring back TV Tuesdays. We've done some other stuff this month in terms of podcasting. We've done other, stuff for Halloween in July, like TV Tuesdays, Friday Night Movies, and Anna Saturdays. And it's funny because I could have put this on Anna Saturdays now that I think about it, but it's... Well, I guess I'm an asshole. Huh. I don't know. It felt...
Run it twice, that's all.
What was that? Yeah,
just run it twice.
Yeah, that's all I have to do. Just run it twice. There's other anime, and I think that this could have been, even though Anna Saturday is also for animation as well, for some of you guys that are new to this, new to listening to us, but still, I thought this might have fit better for TV Tuesdays for some reason. Clearly,
it's not Japanese, that's why.
I mean, well, again, we've had like Steven Universe and some other animated shows on Saturdays, but you're right. Yeah, it's trying.
Steven Universe is filled with so many weeby references. It might as well be.
Good point. But yeah, so again, check out Those Guys Play on YouTube to find we have over 300 videos. Currently, we are close to wrapping up Halloween in July, but it's okay because we still have some other videos coming out, so we're not done just yet. Also, we have, you're currently listening to a podcast, which thank you, but I don't know how you're listening to our podcast. You could be listening to us through our Blog Talk Radio account, which is blogtalkradio.com/those-guys-on-the-radio. You could be listening to us through our iTunes account by searching up Those Guys, or you could be listening to us through our YouTube backlog by searching up Those Guys on the Radio on YouTube. I don't know how you're listening to us. Thank you, but those are the different ways that you can be listening to us. Also, if you want to get some of our merchandise, you can go over to our main website, which is teachproduction.net/merchandise, or over to our eBay channel, which is /USR/ThoseGuysRadio, where not only do we have on both sites fun t-shirts that are either quotes of stuff that we said on Those Guys on the Radio or Those Guys Play variants, we also on our eBay channel have exclusive posters drawn by our very own Anthony Sinandris, a podcaster and Let's Player who works with us. So you get exclusive fun stuff through there, as well as stuff from my personal collection, video games, DVDs, VHS tapes, and other fun little trinkets you can find over at our eBay that are exclusive from me. And if you want to help us keep the lights on, which would really be nice because lights are a good thing to have. If you want to help us keep the lights on, you can go to our Patreon account, which is Teacher Productions, and you can donate to us there to get a lot of different rewards and stuff like that through us. Constantly adding some new stuff in there, and we may be even adding some more rewards soon. So yeah, so Teacher Productions is our Patreon, and again, thank you all so much for listening. Yep. No, we can't be rude about it. But please.
Well, I'm a guest. I can be rude.
Right.
No, actually, don't fuck us. That's a different payment tier. No, give us money.
We cannot. That is not a payment tier. I'll say that much. That is illegal. But thank you so much, everybody, and thank you for being on, Pete. Hopefully, we get you on again, if not in podcast form, in Those Guys Play video form, in some kind of video. You don't have to be here. Just in some kind of video format. You can send us a VHS tape of just pre-recorded Pete, and we'll place it in.
Rig up an old camcorder,
and I'll just play Castlevania games. And I'd be like, "Wow, wasn't that cool, Pete?" And you'd be like, "Yeah." We'll just
please insert VHS tape for positive reaction.
Yes, right. Please flip over VHS tape. Wait, that's not right.
No, that'll be a laser disc.
Yeah, I believe that's a Laserdisc. Yeah, send it to me.
Versus LDLP.
Yeah, send me your reactions on Laserdisc, Pete. Thank you all so much. Love you guys. Take care and say goodnight, everybody. Or say goodnight, Pete.
Good night.
Good night.